Welcome to the November the 3rd, 1998 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie, as we bring you the history of our city and its environs and some of the people that are very important in making that history in the past and that continue to make history today. We're very excited. This is our history tape number 350, and we're just honored today to have a very special young man and his wife that have been very important to Grand Prairie only recently, but continue to be very important to our future because he is a very special Navy person. And we're just very pleased to bring to you the commander of the Joint Base in Fort Worth, the Navy base in Fort Worth, a very special young man, Captain McDonald, and we are very pleased to have you, Craig, with us.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for inviting us all the way over here for your show. I appreciate it very much.
Yes, we're very excited. And you brought a beautiful young lady, your wife, with you, and Kathy.
Yes.
Welcome to the set.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have both of you all with us. And
thank you.
So that we can get better acquainted with you because you're very important to Grand Prairie, even though you're located in the Fort Worth area for your assignment, because formerly you, before the closure of Navy Dallas, you had a very important spot there that you were the commander of that and had site commanders under your direction as you closed the base. I would like to find just the real person that really closed the base, and I'm going to blame it on the Secretary of the Navy. Is that all right? He might not like that.
He may not like that, but someone in Congress maybe,
yes,
that would be okay.
Yes, it would. And I would like to publicly thank you and Navy Dallas for the distinct honor that you gave to the Speaker on closure day. And you really surprised us. And I brought along some of my memorabilia so that I could let everyone in Grand Prairie, Texas know how very kind you all were. This was the beautiful program for the closure ceremony. And Louis, I know that you want to get a shot of this because that is very beautiful. We might want to end the show over that, who knows. And along with the beautiful program and the ceremony for the day, you presented us with a United States flag.
Right.
The next to the last one.
Correct.
That flew over Navy Dallas. The last one went to the Secretary of the Navy.
That's correct.
And you tell him that we still covet that one, but we adore this one too. And a wonderful certificate that commemorated that, and that is just so very special. And I thought that was going to be enough until I found that you all had made a beautiful, beautiful plaque from Navy Dallas just for service. And that was beyond the call of duty, and I want to thank you publicly and thank the Navy and all of the past commanders and anyone that had anything to do with seeing that that I received this because it was a very special.
Well, thank you. That's the least we could do for your great support that we've had over at the air station for all those years. You've been supporting us and pushing our issues and helping us out in every way we can. That's the least we can do. Not only is that plaque one of the, for you, but that emblem on the plaque of the Dallas, NAS Dallas, is one of the last two that's available ever.
Oh, how wonderful. That makes it even more tremendous.
So you got a flag that was flown before the very last one, and you have one of the last two emblems from the NAS Dallas, one of the last two brass emblems that we had.
May I publicly thank you again?
Well, no, it's my pleasure, actually, for all you did, from 1941 to 1998. That's superb.
That was a long time, wasn't it? Yeah. All right, now let's get into the real meat of our interview today. We want to get to know the real Craig McDonald before he became a captain, before he became a commander. We'd like for you to look out into your camera and give us a little bit of your history, your parents' names, grandparents, anyone you'd like to name drop, please.
Okay, well, I was born and raised in eastern Montana. I lived there about 18 years before I joined the Navy, and eastern Montana is a great place to grow up. It was a small town, about 9,000 people, which is a small town almost anywhere. But
would you like to name it?
Miles City, Montana, named after General Nelson A. Miles, who didn't make it to the Battle of Little Bighorn, but he was at Fort Keogh when the Battle of Little Bighorn went on, and General Custer was over in the valley fighting the Indians. I grew up there for 18 years. My family is mostly ranchers. My father was not a rancher. He was a salesman and a businessman in the city of Miles City as itself.
Yes.
My grandfather, and he came over with his brothers in 1902. My original name was MacDonald, M-A-C-D-O-N-A-L-D. And to be part of the American establishment, I guess you would call it, they changed their name at Ellis Island to McDonald. And him and his brothers came over and actually settled in South Dakota as sheep herders, and then they migrated to Wyoming and Montana, and they've been in that area since 1902 as sheep herders. And that's how most of my family is, and relatives are all sheep herders in eastern Montana.
Well, you would give us your father's full name and your mother's maiden name.
My father's full name is Duncan Faher MacDonald.
Oh, great.
A good Scotchman name.
Yes.
My mother's maiden name is Betty Jean Owen.
Yes.
And she grew up in Ogden, Utah.
Yes.
And that's my middle name, Owen. So I'm the myself and my mother and then my daughter. They were the third generation or fourth generation Owen, if you want to call it. So it was exciting. Growing up in Montana was a lot of fun. It was a great place to raise kids. But I left there after 18 years and been in the Navy ever since, and I have enjoyed every day of it.
Now, we need to get back to your brothers and sisters, if you would like to name drop them and pull this family together. And we also are going to get back to your first days in school in Montana.
Well, I have three brothers. I don't know how my mother did it, but she raised four sons. My oldest brother's about a year and a half old. I got another brother that's less than 10 months old, or 10 months younger than I am. Then my youngest brother's about a year and a half or 2 years younger. I don't know how she raised four sons. It was very difficult at the time.
Yes.
My oldest brother, Scott, was a college basketball coach. Now he's a athletic director at Bozeman, Montana, in the high school system up there. My next youngest brother, Kyle, who's a year younger, about 10 months younger than I am. He works for a software company in Denver, Colorado. And my youngest brother, Robbie, is a high school principal in a little town called Conrad, Montana, next to Billings, Montana, a high school of about 100 people at the most. Sometimes they don't have enough kids in that high school to have a basketball team, enough boys anyway.
Yes.
And we all grew up in Miles City playing sports, so when we were in high school, all of us were pretty much in high school at the same time, at least the three oldest. And one would be a senior and I'd be a sophomore, and my brother would be a freshman. And we'd start, my mother and dad would be at the gymnasium. They'd start at 4 o'clock on a Friday, and we usually leave there about 11 o'clock Friday night and then do the same thing again Saturday. So we'd be watching basketball for hours on end.
And cheering you on.
Always cheering us on.
Always cheering on. All right, when you were in elementary school, were there any favorite teachers that you would like to name drop in Miles City that were real special to your life and to your future?
My second grade teacher, Mrs. Schabel.
Yes.
We've known her all my life. Miles City's not a big town, so when you meet somebody, you'll know them all your life. She was a lot of fun. She was. I thought first grade was okay, but when I got to second grade, it was a lot of fun. She took care of us and took care of the McDonald's in particular, because there's so many of us in such a row that she knew them all. And the amazing thing, the good thing about a little town like Miles City is that everybody knows everybody, and you could do nothing that your mom wouldn't find out about.
Oh, nothing was a secret.
Oh, no secrets in Miles City that your mom didn't find out about it, and then your dad would know, and then finally you would end up knowing that they knew. So they would eventually make sure that they got taken care of.
When you got to high school then, did you have favorite subjects, favorite teachers? Now you were in athletics, but how did you do academically?
Academically, I finished 13 out of 203 in high school. That wasn't too bad.
That's excellent.
For a little town.
Yes.
The best part about high school for me was mathematics. Mr. Stabio was a mathematics teacher. I enjoyed algebra and calculus. It may not sound great, but that was as much fun as I could ever do.
Yes.
Having fun in math.
All right, and after high school, after graduating at Miles City, then what happened to Craig?
Well, I moved on to, got an appointment to the Naval Academy. I actually had an appointment to the Naval Academy and West Point, and I decided to take the Naval Academy because I knew I could become an aviator there.
Yes.
I went to the Naval Academy in the summer of 1972, actually just right after the 4th of July, 1972, July 6th. And I graduated there in June of 1976, June 2nd, and I was commissioned an ensign on the 2nd of June. and went to flight training from there. And I've been in the Navy ever since. Spend most of my time in Norfolk, Virginia. We spent a little time in San Diego for 2 years. I was out of the Navy for a year. We lived in New York, a little town called Suffern, New York, which is just west of White Plains. Not in the city, it's outside the city. Worked for the telephone company in New York Telephone for a year, about a year. Got back in the Navy in 1983 and have been in this program ever since and love every minute of it.
All right, now, was there a mentor, someone that steered you toward the Navy instead of West Point?
Not in particular. What really drove me mostly was the fact that I wanted to be in aviation. I wanted to get into the Air Force Academy, but I don't know why I didn't get an appointment down there. I don't think my English grades were high enough for the Air Force, I think, at the time.
Well, did you ever get to fly then when you first got in the Navy? Tell me about the first years you went to Norfolk.
Oh, yes. While I was at the Naval Academy, you could get in the flying club. I joined a flying club there, flew a few times, but I knew all along that I wanted to be in aviation. So near the end of your career at the Naval Academy, or you end of your 4 years there, you have a service selection night. Oh. And everybody walks down to one of the classrooms there, and you select the service, whether you want to be in the surface Navy, the aviation side of the Navy, or the Marine Corps, the Supply Corps, the Submarine Navy, or the Nuclear Power Navy of any kind. I selected aviation.
Yes.
So I went when I graduated in 1976, then I went to flight school from there. And that's when I started flying.
Where was flight school?
In Pensacola.
Oh, in Pensacola,
the cradle of naval
Florida.
aviation,
yes.
by all means. It's a great time down there. It's a good place to learn to be an aviator down there. They take very good care of the young ensigns that come down there. They make it very demanding because it is a demanding occupation. But it was a lot of fun.
All right, and you were down there in '76 until when?
I left there in the summer of 1977, and that's when I went to Norfolk to complete advanced training at the training command in Norfolk, training squadron in Norfolk.
And when you were privileged to fly for the first time, what was your first assignment?
My first assignment was after I finished training in 1978, I went on my first cruise in June of 1978 in an E-2 squadron, a Hawkeye squadron. That was the first of 4 cruises I made to the Mediterranean. And
what was that like? For a young man that had spent all of this time wanting to be there, and now...
It was exciting. Here you are, you're 24 years old.
Yes.
Everything around you is different.
Yes.
You've never seen it. It's gee whiz. You're so excited about it. All your aviation experience is up to this point has been in the training command.
Yes.
You are now a fleet aviator.
You're in charge.
You're not really in charge.
You're
being
in charge
told,
of that plane.
That's correct. You've been told what to do.
Yes, yes.
But once you get flying, you're out there on your own. You're taking care of business on your own.
And how'd you like the Hawkeye?
It's a great airplane. It's for my community, for an individual such as myself, a naval flight officer, it's the perfect airplane because there's 3 of us in the back. We control the battle problems from the back of the airplane. The radar is our bread and butter. We can see everything that the battle force needs to see. We can report on almost everything the battle force needs to, for the admiral to make his decisions on how to deploy his forces around the battle force. It's a great airplane for us.
Have you ever been sorry that you made the choice?
Oh, no. Oh, no. Never be sorry. Matter of fact, aviation is so much fun, I almost do it for free.
Yes.
Never sorry to ever
Never
make the
look
choice.
back.
No.
All right. And where did we meet Kathy along the way?
Right after his first cruise.
Right after my first cruise.
All right, we're getting right to the point.
Oh,
almost
yes.
now, after that first cruise.
In July of 1979, I met her. Actually, it turns out kind of funny because I bought a house in Virginia Beach in a kind of like a condominium complex, duplex complex.
Duplex,
And I didn't know Kathy, but I knew a worker. I knew somebody she worked with at the newspaper, and she worked for the newspaper in Norfolk. And it turns out that her sister was just down the street, about 4 houses from where I lived. I didn't know that until I met her.
They bought their houses the same week.
Same week, moved in.
And we met the same week.
Well, wasn't that a coincidence?
It was a good one.
I'm going to put you on hold a minute.
Okay.
Let's get to Kathy and bring her up to speed. Here we have her dangling at Norfolk or wherever, and we don't have her born yet. Tell us about your parents and anything you'd like to about your life too, Kathy.
Okay. Well, I was born in Chesapeake, Virginia, which is a suburb of Norfolk, which is a
Yes.
big Navy town, but I never knew anyone in the Navy until I met Craig. Even the kids I went to school with, there were very few Navy people because they all lived in Norfolk or Virginia Beach. They didn't live in Chesapeake, which was very rural at the time.
Yes.
My dad worked for the railroad his whole life, and my mother mostly stayed home with us. And I have two sisters, and I'm the youngest of the three. There's 4 years between each of us. I came from a family of all girls, and Craig came from a family of all boys, so our parenting techniques are real interesting. And we have a girl and a boy, so I think it made us more well-rounded parents.
Would you like to name your parents and then your sisters?
Yes, my dad was Steve Gibson. Both of my parents passed away in the last few years,
Yes.
and my mom was Joyce Williams Gibson, and they were both from West Virginia.
Okay.
And my sisters are Anita Weaver, and she still lives in Virginia, and she owns her own insurance agency, and she has two children. And
Would you like to name drop those nieces or nephews?
A niece and a nephew, I'd like
Good.
to very much. My niece is Stephanie Casey, and she's married and has a little baby. And my nephew is an actor who was on a NBC show, Wind on Water.
Yes.
He's William Gregory Lee, and he's just starting out, but he's doing real well. And that's just my only niece and nephew on my side of the family. And my other sister is married to a Navy man, and we introduced them, Craig and I did. And I don't always know if she thanks us for that because they've been all over the world. They've been to Japan, and they're in Italy right now. And
How wonderful.
so, well, sometimes it's wonderful, but she tells me the other side of it sometimes.
And her name?
Janie
That's
Grossel.
Janie and her husband?
And Joe.
Oh, Janie
And
and
he's
Joe.
also in the E2
All right.
community.
All right. And you grew up in what town and going to elementary school? Did you have any favorite teachers? We got to get
yeah.
yours.
Yeah, I grew up in Chesapeake, which was not even a city when I was growing up.
Yes.
I remember when they voted to make it a city. It used to be part of Norfolk County. But my favorite teacher was my 5th grade teacher, and Mrs. Gammon, and she was wonderful, very inspirational. And
And to high school, you have a mentor or a favorite teacher or subjects?
I had a favorite subject. English was always my favorite subject. I love to read and write, and I still do.
How did you get into the newspaper business?
That love, that interest in reading
Yes.
and writing, and I was in the editorial area, and I was editorial assistant, and I worked there for a while, and then I got into graphic arts, which is my other love.
Yes. All right. And who introduced you to?
Well, I worked with a lady who was a friend of Craig's, and she had been going to fix us up and get us
Yes.
together to play racquetball, and that was our first day playing racquetball.
Oh, good, good.
So, and he beat me.
All right. And you married, and now I'd like for you to tell about the children.
Well, we have a 13-year-old daughter, Kelly,
All right.
and a 9-year-old son, Keith.
All
and
right.
they've been real troopers moving around the country.
Yes.
They've been to a lot of different schools, and I think they've adjusted very well, although I know it's got to be hard for them. We both grew up going to the same school from the 1st to
Yes.
the 12th grade, essentially, so we don't even know how it feels for them as
Yes.
kids having to start all over every 2 years, and basically it is every 2 years we move.
Well, since you've been married to the commander, do you ever work out of the home, or are you just a stay-at-home housewife that aids and abets?
I'm a stay-at-home mother. I
Yes.
think that's the most important
With those
thing I
babies.
can do is to stay home and be there for them. And I'm very involved in their schools.
She's
Well, if
not
I have a
home very
job,
often.
if I have a job, it's being over at the schools
That's right.
and helping out at both schools.
And not only that, he has a lot of social obligations as the commander of the Joint Reserve Base that I'm sure that you're called on quite a few times to come to
Much
the
more
front.
so than in the past.
Yes,
We really didn't have that many social obligations in the past, but we do now.
No, you do now, huh? Keeping
Yeah.
her busy.
Well, she's very busy, though. I mean, she stays at the school a lot, and that's very important.
All right. I would like to get a few more of your pit stops that you've made along the way. We got you up to your to your first assignment, and we have you married now with a family, but tell us some of the other places you've been privileged to serve.
Well, because of my community, the E2 community is fairly small, it's either Norfolk or San Diego. We spent a better part of our career in Norfolk. We left there in 1981 when we moved to Suffern, New York to work for the phone company.
Yes,
Then we came back to Norfolk in 1983 and stayed there till 1988. And then we moved to San Diego for 2 years. Then we went to New Orleans in 1990 and spent 3.5 years in New Orleans. And then in 1994, early 94, we moved back to Norfolk.
Yes.
Stayed there 2 years. Then moved back to New Orleans in 1996, stayed there 2 years. Now we're here for 2 years.
And in all of those different 2-year terms, what did you do? Were you doing the same job?
Well,
were you flying?
I was flying. I was always in a squadron up till
Always in
the
a
time
squadron.
I got to New Orleans in 1990 when I became a staff officer for
Okay.
Naval Air Reserve Force staff.
All right.
And on that staff, I was Air Operations Officer, and then I worked within the staff to do many jobs. Mostly Air Operations. I was in charge of all the operations at that time. We had 7 Naval Air Reserve stations. So we don't have that many today, but
Yes.
at that time we did.
Before they closed us all down on
Before they started closing a
Closing
few
down.
of them down, exactly.
Did you ever fly anything other than the Hawkeye?
Well, in the training command I did, and
right.
I've got a private license. I fly little Cessna airplanes around, but right now I fly the C-12 out at the air station. So that's the aircraft I'm getting my flight time in right now.
Yes,
And that's fun.
great. That is fun, isn't it?
Oh yes, it's always fun to go flying.
Well, when they told you that you were coming to Navy Dallas or to the Joint Base to be over Navy Dallas, what did you think about that? You missed San Diego and Norfolk, and now they're sending you out in the middle of the world.
Oh no, Kathy's brother-in-law, her sister's husband, Joe, was stationed in Corpus Christi. For 2 years as a Trade Wing 4 commander down there, and they talked about Texas being a great place to live, and we said, oh, finally we get our opportunity to come to
Yes.
Texas and see what it's really like, and it has been enjoyable. It's just the greatest place. The people are real friendly, and we have enjoyed every minute we've been here.
Did you work under the direction of Captain Llewellyn?
Uh,
He was the formerly
Right.
the
Wait,
joint.
he's my mentor right now
Yes.
because he taught me everything I needed to know about running an air station. But I've known
Yes.
Dale since 1983.
Oh,
When I
good.
first got in the reserve program, he was the safety officer on the Air Wing staff and I was in the squadron safety officer. So I indirectly worked for him since 1983.
Yes.
And then I followed him to New Orleans because he went from there to New Orleans,
Orleans.
and was a safety officer there. And so I've been kind of following him around.
That's right. And what is he going to do now that you have disposed him from his throne over at the Joint
Well, he's in
Reserve
charge
Base?
of reserve manpower, reserve manpower issues in Memphis at the Bureau of Naval Personnel. He is
Yes.
actually the head of what they call PERS 9 for its reserve claimacy manpower issues.
And how long do you feel that your tenure at Fort Worth will remain? 2 years?
2 years. I get
2
a-
years, and then they bump you
Yeah,
off?
that's correct. You get 2 years to get it right or wrong. You get 2 years. We're a very small program, and 2 years gives you enough time to understand it, and then enough time to implement some great changes if you want to do that, and then it gives somebody else an opportunity after that.
I know one of the most exciting things that you have at the Joint Reserve Base is that you have a complement of many different military groups. How many do you have under your direction?
Well, under my direct direction is
Yes.
I really only have the Navy. Indirectly, I have the Marines.
Indirectly, the Marines and all of the
And
others.
the TANG and the
Yes.
Air Force Reserve, we're integrated as a team over there, as a
Yes.
joint team. I really can't run the base without the team working together, so I work very closely with General Efferson from the Air Force Reserve, Colonel Walker and Colonel Schuffer from the TANG, Colonel Tyra from the Marine Aviation Outfit, Colonel Garner from the 14th Marines. As a group, we work very close together to drive and set the goals for the base as a joint operation. So it really isn't me running per se. It's this little group.
But you're
that does.
still the commander.
I'm
the
the
buck
one,
stops with you.
Yes, it does. I get plenty of those.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, under the circumstances, would you trade being commander for one of the other jobs or do you think this is just the most fun you've ever had?
Oh, this is the most exciting time. I asked Admiral Olson about, matter of fact, I didn't ask him. I heard him comment about 5 years ago. Someone asked him what job he liked the best. And at this time, at that point, he was Commander Naval Air Reserve Force in New Orleans. And he said of all the jobs he's had since he's been in the Navy, this Air Station CO, NAS Dallas,
Yes.
Air Station CO was his best. And he is correct. This is the most exciting time. It's fun. Every day is different.
Yes.
And it's fun to do.
And you have Jean Detterman still as the Secretary of the World.
She knows it all. I can't do it without her. One day, Jean was gone. My XO was on leave. My Master Chief was gone. I had to answer the phone for about 3 days. And she came back to work, and I just wanted to give her everything. So she did it all.
You tell
And
her
she does it all.
That's the pits when she's not there.
That's exactly right.
Oh, right. And are you going to have any more air shows or anything exciting?
Well, we'll have another air show in May of 2000. We have one every 2 years.
May 2000.
That's what we're looking at right now.
Okay, I hope I live long enough to see
You
that.
will certainly live that
Yes, yes. And I have a 1993 of the Blue Angels down. We're going to close our show on the picture that was presented, and that's in my archives. And I worry about the archives for Navy Dallas, but
Right.
I'm not going to worry about that anymore because we're going to know that that's in good hands.
It's in great hands.
It's in great hands. I'd like for you to look out into your camera and talk to the young folks that may be watching our show and tell them how exciting it is to be in the Navy and that you would recommend it.
Okay. The Navy today is a very highly technical organization where you can do almost anything you ever wanted to do. If you bring the skills that you have the capability of doing and bring it to the Navy, they will let you grow as fast and stay as long as you want. It's a great opportunity to, yes, see some parts of the world or see as little part of the world as you want, but mostly an opportunity to excel at what you do best. And I recommend not only the Navy, if you're thinking about joining the military, give it a try. It's a great place to grow up. It's a great opportunity to learn something you may not know, and it's a great opportunity to apply the skills that you have already.
And it's an exciting life, isn't it?
Oh, it's always exciting.
Yes. All right, we're going to put you on hold just a minute
Okay.
and get back with you in just a second, but let's get back with Miss Kathy. Miss Kathy, I'd like for you to look out into your camera and let the young ladies know that it's wonderful to be a helpmeet to a Navy person. Because here you've spent a lot of your life being a wonderful helpmeet and doing that. If you'd like to say anything to the young ladies about your real career.
Okay. I think that the Navy is a wonderful place for a family. I've enjoyed every minute of it. We've had the opportunity to go so many places, to live in places and get to know places that other people don't get a chance to do. You go on a vacation, you see a place, but you never really get to know the people. And that's something that we've gotten to do. And it's not always easy. I would be lying if I said that it was always easy. It's hard, mostly because we have children. It's hard to keep your children happy. But once we get beyond the adjustment stage, we always like it, and we have so many friends all over the country, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
Wouldn't change any of that for anything.
Not for anything, and I know my children wouldn't either.
I want to thank y'all so much for this wonderful, wonderful interview.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Time passed entirely too
you.
fast.
Yes.
There's more questions I need to ask you what you're going to do after the Joint Reserve Base, but we'll get to that on the next interview.
Thank you very much.
And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.